Well, hello, ladies, and welcome to our lesson. Previously on Bloom, we've talked about how we were intentionally created by a God whose love for us is limitless. No matter what happens to us, or even what we do to ourselves, our worth and value never change. From the moment of conception to the moment of our last breath, our worth and value on earth never change. We are always priceless, and we are always worthy of love. As human beings, we are three parts. We are body, we are soul, and we are spirit. So, what is our body? That is what we refer to whenever we say head, shoulders, knees and toes, our physical body. And we talked about how we need to have a physical core at the center of our physical strength. Then we have our spirit. I drew this little ghost emoji. Our spirit is what connects with God, and our spirit is what leaves our body whenever we die. And then we have our soul. Our soul, right here, also affectionately known in Scripture as our heart, is our mind, our will, and our emotions. Now, Proverbs 4:23 tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Everything you do flows from it. My entire life, people said to me, guard your heart. Hey, Christian, guard your heart. Hey, be sure and guard your heart. But no one could tell me how to do it. I found that really, really confusing. But just practically, let's break it down for a second. If my heart is my mind, I can guard my mind by being very mindful about what thoughts I let enter and stay in my head. We'll give you the example of the think tank. These fish are not going to have a very good life if a lot of toxins go into their tank. So if we're going to be mindful about what thoughts go in here, we can be mindful to filter out the thoughts that go in the think tank so that they don't trickle down to her heart garden. Now let's think about emotions. My emotions are what I feel. Emotions are not wrong. You hear a lot of people talking about women's emotions and making fun of them. But emotions are right. They help me navigate my life, and they are a temperature gauge for how I am traveling in life, in love, and in my relationships. My emotions become a mess when I allow them to take over, whenever I allow them to steer my life. And then you have your will. Who in here has ever been called stubborn before? My will is the thing within me that makes choices. Most of my choices are a result of my thoughts and my emotions. Let's think about Proverbs 4:23 again. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Every decision I make stems from my heart. Have you ever heard that phrase, follow your heart? Well, honestly, I don't say that phrase and I don't like it, even though it's considered inspirational, because personally, I think there's more value in the phrase follow your fart. I think that if I just followed every whim of my heart, I would be in a lot of trouble. I would probably have a lot of credit card debt and just bought whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. If I just spoke to people the way that I wanted to, whenever I'm feeling a lot of emotion, I could probably hurt a lot of people's feelings. I have to steer my heart, not just follow it. The book of Jeremiah tells me that the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it but God? So Scripture tells me to guard my heart above all things, and that this sneaky heart is also super sneaky and it's going to try to trick me and lead me astray so it can get what it wants. How on earth do I guard this sneaky thing? Well, Psalm 73:26 says, "My heart and my flesh may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." We do not have to guard our hearts alone. What we do is we surrender it to God. Now, I'm never going to stand here and just say, "Hey, babe, just follow your heart," because I have no idea what thoughts you've been allowing in your think tank. I have no idea what thoughts have been grown into fruit in your life. I have no idea if you are currently living in a way that is way too controlled by your emotions and whether or not you're just constantly giving in to whatever you want whenever you want. I am not going to say follow your heart. I'm asking you to surrender your heart. I'm asking you to steer your heart toward God, who is the source of all truth. Now, you may be wondering, I thought this course was a lot about our confidence. Why is she talking about our heart? Your heart has everything to do with your confidence. Now, if I think of my heart as a garden, in fact, I brought the small heart garden here this morning. If I think of my heart as a garden, and whatever I plant in this garden grows, guarding my heart would look like tearing out the weeds that are growing in there that are actually choking the really good fruit. I need to tear out the things that are not kind and nurturing so that the things that need to grow in it can grow in it. If everything in my life flows out of my heart and my heart steers the course of my life, then my confidence would be flowing from what I plant inside of my heart. Whatever I plant, whether it is toxic or healthy, will grow some kind of fruit. Now, this lesson is going to help us discern what the healthy seeds are that we are wanting to plant in our heart so that the core of our confidence is on stable foundation and not one that is going to wash or crumble away. Those seeds will build a beautiful and healthy harvest of confidence in our lives. The scripture, Proverbs 23:7, states, "As someone thinks within himself, so he is." Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Wait a minute. If I think all day long, I'm a puppy, does that mean I'm going to become a puppy? No, but you sure are going to act a little weird. Who here has ever driven a car? Anybody? I am really hoping that if you raise your hands out there in Cyberland, you are currently the owner of a license. Who has ever put gasoline in a car or seen gasoline go in a car? In the same way that gasoline goes into a car to fuel it, we have thoughts go into our minds and they fuel our life. Now, there is this incredible doctor named Dr. Caroline Leaf. She has done a lot of study on the brain. And she says, when you think, you build thoughts, and these become physical substances in your brain. So guarding my heart garden looks like guarding all of the seeds of thought that go into it. Okay, let's talk about a practical example. Let's say I want to play varsity basketball at my school. But instead of going to practice, every single day I think to myself, you don't need to go to practice. You are so talented. You deserve a break. Go home and watch Netflix. And if I think like that over and over and actually stop going to practice, do you think that my coach at my Friday night game is going to put me in the game? No. I actually allowed my entitled thoughts to build a behavior in my life that then took away an opportunity. All right, and what if every single day I think to myself, no one likes me. No one will ever date me. No one could ever be attracted to me. I am hideous. Then the first person to show a little bit of attention might mean a lot more to me than they should. I might feel like, wow, what a miracle, someone actually likes me. Now, what if this person doesn't treat me right? What if this person disrespects me? What if this person doesn't honor my boundaries? I'm less likely to stand up to them and for what's right and what I've set as boundaries in my life if I truly believe that I am worthwhile and priceless, if I believe that I am lowly and hideous and ugly, if someone treats me like I am lowly, hideous, and ugly, I might not stand up for myself. That false belief took root in my life, and the fruit of that root would be me allowing someone to treat me badly. Humility is not low self-esteem. Thinking of myself as some lowly little worm will not serve the world around me. It has been widely quoted that humility is not thinking less of myself. Humility is just thinking of myself less. So in the same way that if I think of myself as better than every other person in the entire world, that would show that there is a fruit of pride growing in my life. If I think of myself as lowly and miserable and awful and worthless, that is a pride of self-hatred growing in my life. Both of those are the fruit of comparison. We have a lesson on comparison that we're going to teach later on. But whether I think very highly of myself or very lowly of myself compared to someone else is not the right way to be thinking. What I need to ask myself is, what does God think of me? What are His thoughts about me? And then as I pour those seeds into my heart garden, they are going to grow an amazing harvest of confidence. Psalm 139 talks about how we can't even think all the thoughts that God thinks about us. We can't even count them. We can't fathom them. He speaks over us verses like, "You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you." This beautiful God, who loves you so much, has some advice for us in Romans 12:2, which says, "Do not copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn how to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." How do you know what the will of God is for your life? You allow God to transform your thinking. It says it right there. Now, I've got some good news for you. Even if your whole think tank is filled with stinking thinking, a positive thought is so much more powerful than a negative thought. And you can reroute your negative mindsets by thinking. If we want to reroute the toxic things growing in our lives, we have to reroute what we're thinking about. So we get to build our mindset muscles right now. A thought repeated over and over and over again becomes a habit. And a habit becomes our mindset. And our mindsets determine our actions. On average, every human thinks about 30,000 thoughts a day. That is 30,000 chances to sow life and nurture and kindness and acceptance and love into the garden of our hearts. So what should we be thinking about? Well, Philippians 4:8 tells us to think about whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And Scripture also tells us we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. That sounds a little bit exhausting. Take captive every thought? We need to take captive every thought that does not line up with what God has to say about our truest identity, which is our identity in Him. Can I control every bird that flies over my head? No. But can I keep one of those sneaky birds from taking the time to build a nest in my hair? Yes. There are times where you are going to just think a thought. It might be your natural reaction to think a thought. Maybe someone does something and your first thought is something mean toward them, or you're frustrated, or you're thinking something you really should not be saying out loud. Maybe your first thought is self-pity or pride or a self-hatred thought. That's okay in the sense of we can't control every single thought. It's whenever it flies overhead, we can take control of it so that it doesn't build a nest in our hair. It really, really matters that we start to do this because what we think about, we feel. We cannot really separate thoughts and feelings. What you think about yourself, you will feel about yourself. Now, if human beings on average think about 30,000 thoughts a day, and a bully calls me a mean name in a school hallway, that bully's name that they call me is just a drop in the bucket of thoughts that I think that entire day. I have 29,999 more thoughts that day that I can actually take that thought that got thrown into my think tank. I didn't put it there. Someone called me that name. I take captive that thought and reroute it by surrendering that thought to God and by saying, no, I'm not, I am, and affirming my truest identity in the truth of Christ. Now, here's the deal. That thought that person called you might come into your mind a lot. You might think about what they said. Maybe it hurt your feelings. Every single time that bird flies overhead, that thought comes across the screen of your mind, take it captive. And again, surrender it to God and affirm yourself with the truth. How can I check whether or not my thoughts are positive or negative? Well, when I thought that thought, did my self-esteem rise or did it lower? There have been times where I just suddenly felt anxious. I was feeling kind of anxious and I couldn't figure out why. Well, I have to stop and say, what was I thinking when this anxiety began? And most of the time, I'll comb through my thoughts for a second and realize maybe I had a quick thought about a bill I needed to pay, or a friend who I thought maybe I had hurt their feelings and needed to have a conversation with them to make it right. Maybe I thought about something to do with body image or something to do with my reflection in the mirror and started feeling a little bit anxious. Well, when I go back and find that thought, that's whenever I replace it into a positive thought in my mind. Dr. Caroline Leaf says, as we think, we change the physical nature of our brain. As we consciously direct our thinking, we can wire out toxic patterns of thinking and replace them with healthy thoughts. It isn't enough to just try to stop thinking the negative thought. I need to actually replace it with a positive thought. Here's what I do. Instead of trying to exhaust myself to find all the negative thoughts I think about myself all the time and to immediately try to renew my mind 100%, that's going to put way too much pressure. I am just going to focus every single day on being intentional with the truth that I pour into my mind. So for instance, this is a little idea. I write positive sayings on my mirrors so that as I'm getting ready, I am automatically putting positive sayings and scriptures into my mind while I am getting ready. Why do I do this? Because I look in the mirror all the time. So I am already sowing truth in regard to my appearance. You could put a little scripture on your scale for when you stand on it. You can change your phone screensaver to being a positive message in your life. Now, whenever I pour this truth into my mind like a giant bucket of truth, I want to be on the offensive, not just on the defensive for when a negative thought comes. I'm going to give you an example right now of how to renew our minds. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to use my trusty machete. This very sharp machete I have fashioned out of cardboard, and it will be my tool for this example. Now, this is what I need you to do. Use your imagination for me. I am currently in very tall grass and in lots and lots of plants all around me. There's vines here and right here. And I have already built a pathway in my mindset from here to here. I have already this thought, so many times, it is a really clear pathway. It's really easy to go down this pathway. For me to choose a different direction would actually take a lot of hacking and a lot of work, right? Now, what if this pathway that I have built is a negative one that I need to reroute? Maybe every single time I make a mistake, I belittle myself on the inside. The thoughts that I think are something like, "You idiot! How could you do that? You let everybody down. You forgot again." If I think thoughts like that every single time I make a mistake, I'm probably going to have a really sad heart. Those thoughts would be producing some negativity in the way that I feel. They're going to lower my self-esteem. Maybe I forget to study for a test and I get to school and I have forgotten to study. Instead of saying to myself something positive, I say, "You idiot! You did it again! You forgot! You let everyone down!" Those thoughts are going to grow into a harvest in my life, but a harvest of self-hatred and of negativity. Now, if I'm going to change that thought life, I'm going to have to be very intentional. Whenever I make a mistake, let's say my mom asked me to pick up cat food at the store and I forgot. I get home and she says, "Where's the cat food? Little Meow Meow's hungry." Then, instead of saying, "You idiot," I can stop, face forward, and decide I'm going to hack a pathway. I would say something like, "You are a human being and we make mistakes and it's okay. You're going to do better next time." Now, how many of you know that this pathway right here is going to be way easier to travel on than this one? This is going to take some work. I'm going to have to spend a lot of time hacking a pathway here to be able to walk forward. But eventually, because it takes 21 days to form a habit, this thought pattern will be built. It's just going to take 21 days of being very intentional to say kind things to myself when I make a mistake. Now, how many of you know it's hard to do when you're feeling triggered? Let's say I forget again. I get to school and I completely forgot my homework. And I go to say, "You idiot, you." I'm going to catch myself. I'm going to back up and I'm going to replace it with something positive. I'm going to say, "Christian, you made a mistake. We all make mistakes. You're doing the best that you can, and you can ask for extra credit and turn in your homework tomorrow." I'm going to think that positive thought so that my trigger response wouldn't be self-hatred and belittling. My trigger response would eventually be kindness, right? I did this in my own life with my weight. Because I had an eating disorder for years, I had a lot of horrific self-talk. And I had a lot of different pathways that this horrific self-talk could take, and a lot of really toxic fruit that was growing in my life. Now, I also have the opportunity to still get triggered. We all do. But whenever it comes to body image, very especially, I'm going to talk to all the girls out there for 1 second. When it comes to body image, I do not like being affirmed, nor do I affirm other girls in language that is pressure in regard to body image. So I had to completely change my language so that the way that I felt was different, right? So let's say that I gain 5 to 10 pounds. When I stand on the scale, what I say to myself is, "Girl, you make that 5 pounds look good." Whenever I am complimenting my friends, like let's say that a friend, her body image has shifted, or maybe she took a lot of ownership in regard to eating healthy and more of a disciplined exercise regimen, the way that I compliment her is never with body image language. I say things like, "Girl, you're looking fit. Wow, you are looking strong." I use that language because that is good and healthy body image language. I actually don't want to add to the cycle of pressure that women naturally feel because of society. So let's say that I look in the mirror like I did this morning and I have a giant pimple or a constellation of pimples all over my face. Well, when I look in the mirror, instead of saying something negative to myself, I say something like, "Girl, you make that constellation of pimples look fine." Or I say, "Wow, looking good, girl, get it." Because I don't want to say messages to myself that I have to look perfect in order to feel beautiful or worthy of love. Times where I feel insecure, I will look at myself in the mirror and say, I am worthy of love just as I am. If I have gained weight and I can tell that my clothes feel a little bit more snug, I say to myself, I am worthy of love right now, just as I am. When I tell a joke and it falls to the ground, not often, I say to myself, I am worthy of love just as I am, whether people laugh at my jokes or not. If I really wanted to do good on a test and I fail, I say to myself, I am worthy of love just as I am. If I make a mistake or I stumble on my words or I say the wrong thing to a friend and hurt their feelings, I can apologize to them and then affirm myself that I am worthy of love just as I am right now, as I continue to steer my heart toward God and toward the truth, which is that I am precious, I am priceless, I am treasured, and I am worthy of love just as I am. Now we're going to go into our discussion groups, and I cannot wait to see you next week.